welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Another Wednesday, another episode of Kicking It with Zain, aka the Belt Guy. Again, there's a belt, I'm a guy. It's as simple as that. So today we're very, very lucky to have Justin Penik from Talking Giants and basically all over the internet, YouTube, you name it. Everybody knows who Justin is, but do we really know who Justin is? So we're going to find out a little bit today about Justin. And let's just hear it directly from him. And so let's just go ahead and welcome the man himself on. Justin,
Zain, what's going on?
Appreciate you being here, man. It's a Wednesday and you're here. So this is exciting, right? Get to know a little bit about who you are, how'd you get here, and that whole 9 yards. So just quick shout out to everybody here, but most importantly, shout out to you for again taking extra time to be here. So let's just get right into it, right? Justin Penik. How did you end up a Giants fan? How did you end up where you are today? What tell me a little bit about that journey. How do you go from, I'm 5, I'm 10, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to run a very successful sports branch of media about my favorite football team.
Man, Zain, first of all, thank you for having me. I know we were on a show. I want to say a couple months. It could honestly be a year.
Could have been last year. I don't remember. Yeah, absolutely.
Last year,
it
just felt like a couple months ago. But I first of all, I want to compliment you because I didn't really know who you were before we chatted about probably like a year ago. But you were coming out with stats and stuff. I'm like, you know what, I agree with this, or maybe I didn't even see it from that kind of point of view. So that conversation that we had about a year ago on another platform was absolutely awesome. So I want to compliment you and thank you for having me on. So origins of little Justin becoming a Giants fan. Where it starts is my father. I think a lot of people maybe have that kind of origin story of your parents. You have an uncle, you have a brother. So my father was a Giants fan. He growing up with him, we would go to Giants games. But really, where it started for me, from like my first vivid, good memory of being at a Giants game was 2007, Week 17. Against the Pats.
Oh man, that was your first game you ever went to, or that's just
no? I started going to games in 2005. Actually, my first game, because at the old stadium there was a waiting list for tickets. My father put my name on the waiting list for Giants regular season tickets when I was born. I was born in 1998. So my name wasn't called until they got the PSLs. And MetLife Stadium, and they started charging for more for tickets, and people that own tickets since 19 whatever were now being charged. Oh, you got to not only pay for the tickets every year those prices are going up, but you got to pay thousands of dollars for the right to own the seats with those PSLs. So that's when my name was finally called in like 2010. But my father put my name in 1998 with the expectation that my name would be called sometime during like the middle of my lifetime, because that's just how Giants tickets went. So 2005, the Saints, it was Hurricane Katrina. The Saints had a game at Giants Stadium that was a home game for the Saints. Right. So that was my first Giants game ever. My father kind of jumped at the opportunity, and yeah. I remember there were cheerleaders where usually you never see like cheerleaders, at least at that point. I never saw cheerleaders at Giants Stadium, and then they were wearing their white jerseys. So it was a weird first game to attend, but that was my first game. So I was at a few games, but by the time we get to 2007 and that awesome season, but that game made me just fall in love with football. And a lot of the reasons why I love football today: offense, scoring points, close games that come down to the wire, game-winning drives, or even, the agony of defeat on like game-losing drives and things like that. And, seeing, how many future Hall of Famers were playing in that game with Randy Moss, Tom Brady, the guys that were on that Pats team, along with Michael Strahan, Eli Manning on our side, and that awesome O-line and that awesome defense and everything like that. So that game, like just even leaving that game I was 9 years old at the time, leaving that game losing 38-35, I do not remember being upset or angry that we lost the game, because it was such an awesome game, and it was just such an awesome atmosphere where everybody was on their feet for basically the entire game. And it was a game that meant nothing, but also meant everything at the same time. And then obviously going from that week 17 game, going on that Super Bowl run, I was like, all right, I'm in, and you got me hooked, and I ain't going anywhere for the rest of my life. And then, of course, 4 years later, they do it again, except they do it different, and it's Eli Manning and his arm. And then again, like, okay, this is now just awesome being a Giants fan. So that's how I kind of got hooked. And I always will point to that week 17 Giants Stadium, Giants versus Patriots, the game that meant nothing, but also meant everything at the same time. Because I really think, like, if we don't lose that game in the fashion in which we lose it, I don't think we go on to win that Super Bowl. That's kind of like my little origins.
Yeah, and I mean, origin stories love it, and that's an excellent one. But yeah, you're 100% right. I think I didn't know if that '07 team thought they could really, really hang. When it came to the elite competition, and that the Patriots were the elite competition. So for them, not only hang. I mean, they went blow for blow. Yeah, they came up short, and that was okay. But they went literally toe to toe. So I think you're 100%. That triggers something in your mentality. Hey, listen, if we can do this, we have a real shot, as opposed to I wonder how we're going to stack up. So I'm sure that was a great shot in the arm for them. So that's a pretty cool origin story, man. From 9 to here. And especially like you had mentioned, right, the way they won those 2 Super Bowls, like you said, vastly different contrast on how those 2 even took place. And again, without Eli just being where he is, that 2011 one doesn't even happen. That was literally, I don't want to say it was all him, but I think we can all come to a consensus that it was a lot of him for that to even happen. So just want to make sure I shout everybody that's in here. Appreciate everyone being in here. Chris is in here. So I shout out the L16 King.
That's a lot.
Of course, Brandon's here. Jay Ferries is here. Mark Thompson. I just want to make sure I just give people Darius. Again, Darius supports everyone. I still don't know how he does it. Darius literally supports every single show. I don't even know if he's a real person. He might be AI at this point. Very, very possible. I just don't know. Let's see. Darius doesn't live in New Jersey. Brandon, hopefully we meet, all that. All right, here we go. So Will talking to, because I always ask people, this is your chance to get to know Justin. Ask a question if you want. Chris wants to know, will Talking Giants be hosting watch parties in this upcoming season?
Yes. So I know these technically aren't watch parties, but every single home game we will be hosting a tailgate besides preseason. I mean, we'll have like a loose little meetup in preseason for the 2 preseason home games, but every single home game we will be hosting a tailgate. And every single game we'll have food provided. We will be selling tickets, and we'll have more information on that as probably like in the middle of August when the season gets closer. But watch parties, we're going to be having a watch party since the Giants kind of gypped us a little bit for FanFest. I said, let's have a watch party just like we did for the Vikings and the Eagles. Obviously, playoff games, much different vibe than preseason games. But let's have a watch party for the Giants-Lions preseason game, since that's the only away preseason game that we have. So let's have like a very low-key watch party. So whatever day that game is, it will be a watch party that's going to be happening probably in New York City. We actually had a conversation about closing it on a venue today. That information will be relayed whenever that gets finalized, but that's going to be a watch party. The second watch party during the season, or the first watch party for a regular season game, will be versus, I believe, what game comes first? The Raiders or the Bills? I think the Raiders game might come first. No, I think it's the Bills.
I think it's the Bills.
So it's the Bills game that's going to come first, Sunday Night Football. That will be a watch party for regular season, and then the Raiders Sunday at 4:30. That will be another watch party. We're going to talk about, because part of what I love doing with this stuff is anything that we do in person, and anything that I get a chance to meet the Giants community, and then also more specifically our Talking Giants community. Anything that we do in person, that is my favorite thing to do. So the watch parties like that, when we had that event at Mr. Purple last year, we had 200 people packed into a Giants bar witnessing the first playoff victory since we won the Super Bowl in 2012. That was, and being there, calling the game on YouTube, live stream, just live streaming the game, plus having 200 people that 200 of our closest friends there. It was it changed my life, and it was one of the best days of my life. And I don't say that jokingly or sarcastically. I seriously really do mean it. So I'm really looking forward to those watch parties, and then hopefully we can go back to the playoffs and then do it again.
And Doug Analytics agrees that
Doug was
Mr.
there.
Purple was the highlight. So, I mean, definitely in agreement. So you mentioned, I just want to kind of touch on it because you said it. FanFest. What are we doing here? What's happening? Who in the marketing department was like, this is a really good idea, and why? Just why? I guess who, why, what's happening with why? I'm still on the why here.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wish I knew why. I honestly think that I don't know. And I don't want to pass off any kind of like judgments to the Giants, especially now that they, we hope, we really think and believe that they fixed their franchise.
Sure.
A couple years ago, if they did this, it's like, well, they get everything else wrong, so why not get this wrong?
Yeah.
I don't want to put that on them. Maybe there's something with with the practice schedule and the way that the preseason is lining up that they're doing this, but they just took away. I mean, I'll just say what FanFest was, like just to I think the general fan base, and especially like people on Twitter, and people on Twitter that kind of would live close and could afford to even just get there and have the time and the means to get there. That was like really our kickoff to the year. Week 1 is of course a kickoff to the actual football season, but getting everybody there before the first preseason game, because there's the first preseason game that has a lot of hype, and then there's the third preseason game that has a little less hype, just because okay, we're getting old and we're getting tired of preseason football, and now everybody's going to get really excited for week 1 again. But they did it before, at the perfect time, before the first preseason game, so everybody is super hype. The reason why people would show up is because even if it's just a walkthrough, people want to watch their favorite team practice. They want to see Daniel Jones. They want to see, at the time, the last couple of years, Saquon Barkley won't be there this summer. They want to see Kayvon step onto the field for the first time. They want to see their favorite players, and they want to see their favorite team practice. And they took that away for whatever reason. So that's the thing that stinks. And you're gonna not get, especially maybe the fans without children and the fans without kids. You're not going to get those people to kind of show up to like a movie night with some fireworks. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hopefully they hear the battle cries of the complaints that we had this year, and they put it on next year, because it was a really, really good event, and the Giants did really good by fans by putting that event on.
Do you think Marcus McKeithen's injury had any bearing whatsoever when they go, hey, you know what? That was really unnecessary, even for the fans. Let's not throw it extra. Do you think that was any type of scenario, or I'm just reaching here? Probably not.
No, probably not. But who? Like I said, I don't know the conversations that go on behind closed doors, because you'd be surprised sometimes to hear, like really, you think like this caused like X caused Z here, and it's like no,
Sure.
not really. If you're afraid of playing on your own playing surface, that's a bad look. You know what I mean? And they had a lot more injuries that happened like on that grass field and on the practice field, like the
Correct.
last couple years, than really MetLife Stadium. I kind of felt at times. I know they've, some of the major injuries have been suffered, at MetLife, like McKeithen's torn ACL, but they had a ton of injuries on that grass practice field that they would practice on literally every single day. So, and again, if the reason why you don't want to hold the practice at MetLife Stadium is because if you're afraid of playing on your own playing surface, then there is something very wrong with the playing surface, which they did address this year, and hopefully that new turf is gonna lead to less injuries for these Giants, because certainly we need it.
And they added that midfield logo, so that's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That came out of nowhere, but I like it. Not gonna lie, I like it. Darius had a question, right? I will ask Justin this
Huh?
question. What are his expectations of Isaiah Hodgins? Most people are expecting a little bit bigger year in the second year in this offense, and expectation on his targets and how he's playing. And it seems to be a guy Daniel Jones trusts and throws the ball. So, what is your expectation for him now going into year 2 here?
It's funny. We have PPPs that start at the end of July every year, player profile and projections, where
Mhm.
we take 2 players 3 times a week, and then the other 2 times a week we have regular episodes, but 3 times a week we take 2 players, 1 offense, 1 defense. We talk about them. So the second PPP this year is Isaiah Hodgins. So I actually just did all of my prep and all of my work on Hodgins today, and I kind of rested on, even though there are more, chefs and cooks in the kitchen this year, and that's a very, very good thing for the Giants. With Paris Campbell, we'll see with Sterling Shepard, Jalen Hyatt's here. I think like Isaiah Hodgins's production over 8 games last year, if you multiply it by 2 and maybe trim off some catches and some yards, that's what I think it's going to be. And it's still like a respectable year of, I could see like 50 to 55, 60-ish catches and between like 600 to 700 yards. And even if the catches are even a little bit less than the rate that he was on last year, or the yards were less than the rate that he was on last year, I do think he's going to catch more touchdowns. Like I feel most confident that he's going to catch more than 4 touchdowns last year, because sometimes red zone production can be a little bit of a fluke. I don't think Isaiah Hodgins's red zone production was a fluke simply because of the way in which he got open inside the red zone last year for Daniel Jones. There was the post route against the Minnesota Vikings, which was just an awesome route, and
Yep.
that's not really a route that the Giants, have run super often. But also, you had a lot of Daniel Jones improvising inside the 10 and the 5-yard line, him kind of extending plays with his legs, going to his right, searching. And Hodgins is a very, very smart football player where he can find holes in zone and know where to sit. And he just knows how to get open, even though he's not like the quickest or the fastest guy out there. Smart, tough, dependable.
Sure.
He's very, very smart. I would say out of all the receivers last year, besides Sterling Shepard, but Shepard was obviously hurt. The smartest in terms of knowing how to get open. And that's what Hodgins did in the red zone last year. And I don't see that going anywhere. So I do think he's like easily over 4 touchdowns what he had last year. And I think he's going to lead the team in receiving touchdowns this year.
That would be honestly great because he came on really, really strong. I don't think anyone expected that kind of production out of him. So obviously, it's going to raise the bar a little bit when the hopes come in, right? The optimism will be like, hey, you know what? Year 2, I have all these expectations. But I think they're pretty legitimate from what we've seen. I don't think the expectations are outside of a realm of what he can accomplish.
Yeah, for sure.
Mark says, what is Justin's most significant concern for the offense and the defense, respectively? So, what 2 things, or one on each side, kind of keep you up at night?
Yeah, for offense, it would be for me, the NFL is very smart, and the NFL sometimes can figure out what you're trying to do. So the second year of Mike Kafka and Brian Dable, and I guarantee you they know this. So that I have a full confidence that it's not like, all right, Jason Garrett's just going to run back the 15th year of his same scheme. I trust that Mike Kafka and Brian Dable are going to add wrinkles to this offense, and they're going to try and maybe push the ball a little bit more down the field than what they did last year. But still, the crux of the offense is still like the crux and the basis of the offense. And the teams like the Eagles, specifically the Eagles, they really had it figured out. Like they knew where Jones was going, and you saw how smart James Bradbury was jumping on some interceptions last year during that playoff game. So that's like a slight worry is, are NFL teams, now that they have a whole year of film on the Giants offense, are they going to figure out the Giants offense? And then defensively, linebackers and linebacker depth, like 100%. Like we are really banking on Bobby Okereke staying healthy. You just saw Gerard Davis go down, and camp hasn't even started. And the weakest position group on the team that is interior linebacker, specifically interior linebacker number 2, the weakest spot on the team got weaker and camp hasn't even begun. Yeah. So, Micah McFadden, Darian Beavers, and then Deontay Johnson, who's an undrafted free agent from this year's draft class. They're all like competing for that spot. Our team's going to be able to attack that interior linebacker number 2. And, how is this defense going to further kind of respond from that?
Yeah. And that inside linebacker too, again, you're driving the conversation for me. I'll bring up Gerard Davis. He's hurt. He's on IR. He's done for the season.
Yeah.
And like you said, ILB2 now just got weaker. I know people may think ILB2 might not be that important, because of all the sub packaging. Pretty sure ILB2 was on the field a lot last season.
A lot more than people think. Yeah.
Important role even on the dime packages that we like to run just because of the way it is run. That being the case now, is it in-house for you? Is it bringing the vet for, more competition? Is there like a, hey, I want a Miles Jack, or hey, I really don't care? There's no specific name that intrigues me at this time, but I want to bring in a vet to help bring the group up? Or do you feel like, between McFadden and Beavers and maybe even like you mentioned Deontay Johnson, I think we'll be okay? Where are you really on the ILB2 situation?
I think right now they need to. So since Gerard Davis is on the IR, a roster spot just opened up. So I do think before camp starts, they need to find just another body, like a veteran body that
Sure.
maybe that can entice them and maybe come in here and compete. But really, I'm telling my pro personnel department, just like they did with Jason Pinnock and Nick McLeod was another post 53 man cut down day
Sure.
acquisition that we had. Henry Mondeau was like one of them that like he was all right. For Isaiah Hodgins was eventually the
Sure.
biggest pickup out of all of them that we made midseason that the pro
Fa-
personnel
Fabi-
department.
Fabian Moreau was picked up like in August, or like
Huge,
right at
yes,
the end of
yes.
August, and he was CB2 for most of the season.
Yeah, totally forgot about Fabian Moreau.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm telling my pro personnel department, hey, let's look at fringe linebackers and let's get to work and let's see if there's somebody that could be cut from one of these other 32 teams that is on a roster right now that we can kind of scoop up and maybe he can work, maybe he fits the athletic profile that Wink wants, and maybe he can work at least as depth for the Giants this year. Hopefully, because I am rooting for Micah McFadden or Darian Beavers to solidify themselves as like interior linebacker number 2. They're draft picks. They have team control years. That's the best thing for the team is that, guys that we draft, if they can develop into, quality starters down the line. So that is what I'm rooting for. But just for depth wise, I want my pro personnel department. I want our pro personnel department
Sure.
to go to work on that.
Yeah. And I'm big on Beavers, man. I was a big fan of his
Yep.
last season when he was drafted. I was shocked that we got him as late as we did. And I was like, all right, I like this guy. He was flying in the preseason. He looked good. Everything just looked good. And I was at that game when he got hurt, and that made me very, very sad. But I'm hoping he's healthy and he's good to go because I'd like to see him ILB too. I'd like to see McFadden personally be used more as a pass rusher a little bit, just because that room also causes me a little bit of anxiety, if you will, because I see 2 guys and I see nothing beyond those 2 guys, and that's me personally. Can't speak for anybody else, but what's going to happen at pass rush? They re-signed O'Shane Zimenez, who I'm not a fan of at all. I think he sucks. 99th pick, I believe. Job is to strictly get to the quarterback. He doesn't do it. He does not get to the quarterback. I mean,
He's a pass rushing specialist who's not good at getting after the quarterback.
Thank you. I've been saying this every week. It's literally his job. He was drafted to do that one job, but
he's
he can't
not very
do it.
good.
And surprisingly, he's actually slightly gotten a little bit better at the run, which was his big knock, but he's not doing what he's supposed to do. So I guess they bring him back because he's on a cheap deal, right? Familiar with the system. Maybe there's some hope there of the body and the system scenario. But really, outside of Aziz and Kayvon, hopefully Aziz actually stays healthy because you saw how productive he was in the limited time. What happens beyond them? Who is that third or fourth? Who's that next guy that's going to bring a little something that's strictly from the pass rush and not having to either blitz a cornerback or bring up a McKinney or a Belton into the box or a Holmes, whatever they did last year to make up for it? Is there a guy that you say, God, I hope he's the one?
Man, I talked a lot of UDFAs. I just mentioned Deontay Johnson for a hot sec, but we all know about we know about Jahad Ward.
Yep.
There's no new faces in the Giants' edge room besides this UDFA from Pitt, and that's Habakkuk Baldonado.
Baldonado, yeah, correct.
Yeah, and he's like a UDFA. He even excites me a little bit more than Bryce Ford Wheaton. Bryce Ford Wheaton is in a pretty crowded wide receiver room. And also Bryce Ford Wheaton has got to develop a little bit as a route runner. I think he's kind of a contested catch guy right now. He's going to have an awesome preseason. Really excited to see like Tommy DeVito to Bryce Ford Wheaton in the preseason. But Baldonado, out of all the UDFAs, is a guy that I have my eye on just because he is big. He seems strong. He is athletic when he wants to turn it on and when he wants to play like a madman. Like, man, there's some like top notch like reps that he kind of puts out there. So I'm really excited to see Baldonado this preseason. I think out of all the like Ellerson Smith, dude,
Everyone's even forgotten about that guy. I mean,
can he even stay healthy? That was such a you want to talk about bad Dave Gettleman draft picks. Like that was a bad like top of the 4th round, I think. Dave Gettleman draft pick.
So which ones were at the top of the 4th round, Ellerson, or end of the 3rd round, O'Shane Zimenez?
I think they're both. I think Ellerson Smith is actually. I think he's a little worse because
he doesn't even play. At least O'Shane plays.
And even he doesn't play number 1, and then number 2, he didn't play the season that we drafted him because it was the COVID year, so he opted out. But he was a twig. He was light as a feather.
Yeah.
But when he actually was playing for such a small school, at least O'Shane, like you saw at least something there.
Yeah.
Something there. You saw something from O'Shane, and then obviously it just didn't turn out. But I'm hoping like edge rusher depth beside outside of Kayvon and Aziz, and even Aziz last year
Yeah.
was so inconsistent with missing games, which hopefully that's all kind of behind him. But still, that number 3 edge rusher is important because you don't want to run your primary guys into the ground. You
Sure.
saw it like 2016 with like Pierre Paul and Olivier Vernon. They're on the field for 90% of the snaps. They're going to get burned out eventually. So
And you don't want
that
to
number
always
3
have to
spot is very
sacrifice.
important.
You don't want to always have to sacrifice a DB either, depending on what the other side
Right.
is doing, right? Because you kind of need that DB as well. So yeah, that third guy really keeps me up. I mean, I would
Yeah.
love to give me a Justin Houston, still extremely productive at his age. Literally would be a pass rush specialist. I mean, listen, get your money, have a seat, just come on in on third down. That's all I really need you
Yeah.
for. Pin your ears back and just do that one specific job.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that I think would make Deontay Banks' life easier, Adori's, everybody on the back end too, just with that split second. But again,
Yeah, for sure.
that's kind of me. Speaking of other bodies, there's a I don't want to say a rumor, I guess it's a rumor, the whole Cole Beasley thing, right? Cole Beasley's going to have a workout apparently on the 21st. I believe he's the one who confirmed it, which really isn't that big of a deal just because the workouts have been more often than people think. You just don't pay attention to the Tuesday workouts and the Wednesday workouts unless somebody makes a big deal out of it. Do you think there's actually traction to this, or is it kind of like, well, he's another slot receiver, even though we have like 19, but all our 19 are really hurt? So maybe it's one of those scenarios where we're just keeping an eye on him, and if we need him, if there's interest, do you think it's that kind of a scenario? Or is it if the workout goes well, we're signing him?
I think they possibly wanted him last year. So there's clearly a relationship there with Brian Dable. And
Sure.
you like to think that the Giants have and this is something that I have said myself, but then you got to catch yourself and be like, do the Giants really have like a ton of short wide receivers? Like Paris Campbell's like 6'1".
Yeah,
Wandale's really the only short guy.
sure.
And then how many slot guys do we really have? Shep has inside outside versatility, but Shep the last couple years, his outside inside splits have been like 70-30, where he's
Yeah.
primarily been an outside wide receiver. And this even includes after Golden Tate's departure. So Shep's primarily an outside receiver when he's out there, but he does have the versatility.
Sure.
Paris Campbell is a guy that has outside inside versatility. I would think that he would be like right now, he's like the starting slot receiver. But still, you need depth. And Wan'Dale Robinson coming off the ACL, we were still a little unsure about his overall development as a route runner even before he tore his ACL last year. Now include the fact that he probably doesn't have an offseason to fully train and fully maybe get better as a football player because you're solely focusing on getting that knee healthy and getting your body right. So the Giants don't really have like a ton of slot wide receivers. The rest of them, like Hodgins is an outside guy. Slayton's an outside guy. Hyatt's an outside guy.
I would
Bryce
say probably Crowder is your best, most experienced other
And
healthy
still,
guy
like-
would probably be Crowder, health-wise at least.
Yeah, and Crowder's like, fringe special teams, and ideally he's like your sixth, your fifth or your sixth wide receiver.
Right.
So
You call him when you need him type scenario, not my starter guy.
if they feel like, even though it's like I'm not like slamming my fist against the table for Cole Beasley, but if they feel like they need him, and if they feel like they kind of want him for camp, I'm not gonna say no. It would make the Giants offense, at least for the summer, better. And then he comes in and he competes and say, hey, can you beat out Wan'Dale? And Wan'Dale's obviously still going to be on the team. Can you beat out Paris Campbell? Those guys are still going to be on the team. But if they feel like Cole Beasley is an upgrade, then you have the best players available on the field.
Sure.
Which is
Yep, because this could just be, again, getting that depth to finally rise after years of who's that next guy if something happens.
Right.
In that scenario. And then again, this is not looking good for David Sill's army. It's not looking good at all. Tell me about this year's draft. The general consensus for most people is 1, 2, and 3, regardless of order, right? We're kind of the positions of value, need. Everything matches up. And then you had the additional moves as well for the rest of the draft. How did you feel about the draft? You can touch on your favorite one. You can touch on all of them. You can give me a little soundbite on all of it. Just give me your general overall thoughts about which player made you raise your eyebrows, which one made you jump out of your seats, which one made you go, who the hell is that? Even though I know you guys do extensive work, so I don't think there is a
Yeah.
who the hell is that for you guys. But maybe just for the general public, that when this person gets drafted, you go, most people aren't going to know who that guy is, but that's a good guy. Just give me your general thoughts about how you felt about the draft this year.
Well, I'll tell you what, the difference between last year's and this year's draft is last year, even Wandell Robinson, we were like, what? Who? We kind of knew who he was, but we didn't fully know who he was. And then especially when you get to round 3, Cordell Flott, we're like, we don't really know who this is. And credit to Dan Schneider, Big Blue Banter. Like they were on Cordell Flott and they loved Cordell Flott. But last year's draft class, forget it. Outside of the 2 top 10 picks we had, which I would hope that you would know the top 10 picks. But outside of those 2 top 10 picks we had, a lot of the draft class, we were like, man, who the hell are these guys? And then you go and you do your work. Daniel Bellinger, we knew. But, who the hell are these guys? And we got to go and we got to do our work on them. And, the last year's draft class, big TBD and big, that draft class is really, a lot of that draft class is really like going into their rookie year, or they're looking to have major second year jumps. But this year's draft class, like those top 3 guys, we knew, and everybody kind of knew them, because all 3 of those guys, Hyatt, Schmitz, Deontay Banks, all of them at one point or another were mocked to the Giants at pick 25.
Yeah.
And that's the pick, the first round pick every single year is the pick that everybody is going to fantasize, and everybody's going to know all the different options and all the different alternatives that your team could kind of go in. So all 3 of those guys were mocked to the Giants at one point at 25. And the fact that you can get those 3 guys through the first 3 rounds, that's kind of cool. It's kind of neat. And they didn't need to trade up for Schmitz. They were able, they traded up for Banks. They traded a lot for Hyatt. But the fact that you're able to get those 3 guys that can be difference makers in their own ways, from day one, or even hopefully within their first 2 years, it's kind of awesome. But then even so, a lot of people talk about the first 3 rounds, and rightfully so. But even the back end of the draft, Gervarius Owens, such a fun player, flies around the field. Like I think out of all the guys that are on the roster right now, I think Gervarius Owens fits the best at like box safety. Like if we want to run, sets where we're putting a safety at the line of scrimmage, or a safety that's going to be blitzing, Gervarius Owens is like my guy right now. He's a little bit bigger, physical. Trey Hawkins, I think he fits this system like a glove. I know he's coming from a small school, but that's another guy that plays like his hair is on fire. He's physical, he's fast, he's strong. And then you have the UDFA guys, and there wasn't a ton of draft picks that we had because we had to trade some picks for Hyatt and stuff like that. Jordan Riley was the pick that I was most kind of meh on. But that's still, you're going to be meh on guys that are picked in like the 5th and the 6th round. That's fine.
Sure. I mean,
and then Eric Gray. How can I forget about Eric Gray?
Yeah, that's my sleeper favorite pick personally, is Eric Gray, because for me, he's RB2 immediately. And then if, God forbid, Saquon gets hurt, I wouldn't feel completely down in the dumps about Eric Gray getting RB1 splits at that point. Yeah. Because God knows I don't want it to be Gary Brightwell. And
I'll tell you something that Bobby brought up recently, and I don't know if somebody else on the beat said it, but Matt Breida
might be on the top block, right?
He may be like a cut candidate.
Yeah,
because
I can see that too.
Because you have Eric Gray, and if they feel confident enough in Eric Gray's development, and we've seen time and time again that running backs, they can develop pretty quickly, and sometimes sometimes these running backs, their rookie years are like their best years if they get a lot of carries. Hopefully Eric Gray isn't getting like a ton of carries this year.
Sure.
But if they view Gary Brightwell's special teams contributions enough for him to earn that roster spot, like Matt Breida, who I liked, and I think he did just fine last year, and I think he's a very he's a solid RB2. Sure. I would prefer to have like Matt Breida on the team over Gary Brightwell, but the Giants may view it differently.
Yeah, and that's probably what you already brought up, right? One gives you special team value, and the other one kind of really doesn't. That's where you kind of, I guess, make your decision. But yeah, I mean, I don't see them carrying 5 running backs on the roster. It's probably going to be 3. So
especially with Saquon, no,
it's got to be an odd man out in that scenario. Who was your favorite pick?
John Michael Schmitz. Totally. Get your center. Center's and I think a lot of people are starting to really recognize this, and even just NFL people. Centers, I've always think, center's captain of your offensive line. He's the anchor of the offensive line. He's the guy that's calling out your protections. To get a stable center in there, not a guy that's transitioned from guard and things like that. I love Nick Gates, and I think, if Nick Gates didn't break his leg in 17 different places, I still think that he is the center for this team. But it did happen. Not a guy that John Michael Schmitz is a center lifer. He's been a center forever. He's been a life center at Minnesota, and he's going to continue doing the same thing for the Giants. So, it could take him a little while to transition to the NFL, but that's like a guy that I definitely didn't think that we were going to walk away with after the draft this year was JMS, and we got him, and that was the one spot that we didn't even need to move. We got him where we were slotted to get him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a permanent center. Haven't had one since Richburg, and he was hurt himself, during his tenure at least. You mentioned Hyatt. We traded up for Hyatt. How do you feel about that in the sense of what does it say when the coach says, "Listen, go get me this guy. I need this guy. I want this guy." That obviously sets some level of expectations from people when you see that. What does that do for you as far as seeing their vision and expectation was? What's your expectation for Jalen Hyatt going forward?
Well, what it says to me just about the vision is we want to push the ball downfield a little bit more, which I love. I mean, Giants were almost dead last, if not dead last, and averaged up the target last year. Jones was super, super conservative, and that's because of a lot of different things. It's because interior offensive line, Evan Neal not being very good, your wide receivers not being very good, and that changing week to week. And Isaiah Hodgins basically kind of came in and saved the offense and saved the passing offense towards the last quarter and second half of the season. So you had a lot of things kind of working against you and the overall effectiveness of the passing offense last year, where this year they prioritized speed. They got the guys that were, a little bit slower, like Kenny Galladay. They got those guys out of the building, and they're bringing in guys who are super wicked fast. They brought back Darius Slayton, who was like the only source of speed and the only source of like respect for somewhat of a deep threat on the field at all. Saquon Barkley is an explosive play threat, but that's a guy that's coming out of the backfield. He's not catching the ball 20 yards down the field, whereas Darius Slayton was the only guy that defenses had to respect. Now you have Hyatt, who hopefully will be here for a long time, plus you have Campbell, plus you have Waller and all these other pieces too. But Hyatt's ultimately part of it, and I like adding Hyatt to like this year's team and for this year's class. I love that he fell to the third round. If we took him in the second or the first round, the expectation for him to be like low key, especially if he was taken round one, like some people were mocking us to, that's like wide receiver one territory. Like if you're a wide receiver taken in the first round, the expectation is to be a wide receiver one. And I don't have that expectation for Jalen Hyatt, and that's fine. Like my expectation for Jalen Hyatt is to maybe be like a more polished, better version of Darius Slayton, where he is the deep. Remember Darius Slayton 2019. Not Darius Slayton like dropping the ball and Jason Garrett ruining everything. But, Darius Slayton 2019, where it was fun and big play slay. Like that's almost what I'm expecting Jalen Hyatt to be. But he doesn't have to be like what Darius Slayton was in 2019, where Darius Slayton was basically like our wide receiver one. He doesn't have to be that this year. And that's fine. I want him in packages. I want him to maybe have some moments of flash and some moments where I say, wow, like that's a guy that I know he can develop into something. But I hope that we're not in a spot where we're like overly relying on him. Like I want the Giants to have like a lot of different, opportunities for, whatever chess and whatever strategy they want to play with these wide receivers this year.
Sure. Do you foresee with the added speed, the addition of Darren Waller, year 2 of Bellinger, lots of athletes, lots of speed on the field for the offense. With those additions, are you expecting a lot more motion? What is it from the offense that you're looking to see besides obviously going down the field? How do they accomplish that? Is there a certain personnel you're looking at? Listen, I want to see more 12 because I want to see Waller and Bellinger at the same time. What are you specifically looking for or wanting to see out of the offense in year 2?
Just motion would be cool. I don't have like the numbers memorized on top of my head and where they like ranked motion wise. Maybe it could be better, but also I'm not want to be number one in motion I would just like to run it enough where it serves as an advantage and it helps the quarterback like recognize, is this zone, is this man,
Sure.
things like that. If you want to get like, I'm a big fan of like getting momentum under a guy's feet, like Wandale Robinson. If you want to get his motion I'm more of a proponent of motion at the snap, and that's something that people don't really differentiate sometimes.
Sure.
Pre-snap motion and pre-snap and motion at the snap are two very different things, because motion, just regular motion, you can have a guy that stops, but motion at the snap, like I like to use that as like an actual like part of the play call. And like, okay, well, with this guy's momentum, I'm going to toss the ball to him and he's already going to be running at full speed. But anyway, little rant about pre-snap motion. I would love to see them push the ball down the field more, because they were dead last in that category. They were dead last in plays of 20 plus yards. If this offense is going to take the next step, it is going to be because they produce more explosive plays, and also they get off the faster starts, where Mike Kafka talked about that, where Mike Kafka, he was on Giants Huddle and he said like that's one of like the self-reflection, the self-coaching things that they really talked about, coming into the season, is the lack of fast starts that the offense had. And Warren Sharp recently put something out that I bookmarked and I DM'd to myself. The Giants were last in the NFL, last in point differential after the first quarter, which is incredible, because when you consider that they were last in that stat, they were last in 20 plus yard passing plays last year, and they won 9 games and they won a playoff game. So imagine, and they were still average in like scoring. Imagine if they get off to faster starts. Imagine if they're producing explosive plays at even just an average rate. Imagine how much better the offense can be, and imagine how much better the team can be. And why I'm such a big proponent of getting out to early leads and 20 plus yard passing plays and early down pass frequency. I think if you set yourself up for success early in games, then we're talking about Saquon Barkley. Let's cook in the second half. We have a 7-point lead. We have a 10-point lead. Let's freaking cook. Let's run the ball. Let's control the clock. Get 3 and outs on defense, blitz, and put pressure on the quarterback. And then they feel demoralized when they have to punt the ball and give the ball back to us, because they don't know the next time that they're going to see it, because you have Saquon Barkley and because we can mix in the quick passing game. So I really think, hearing Mike Kafka talk in the spring, I really think that's going to be their approach. And I think part of them wanted to do it last year, but then they realized, oh, Kadarius Toney, you're pointless, you're useless. Sorry. Kenny Golladay, you're also kind of useless. You don't have anything left in the tank. Oh, crap. And Sterling Shepard just got hurt. So David Sills is the best option that we have at wide receiver now. So I think they kind of got to that point and they're like, all right, we have to pivot. And then you heard Saquon on the podcast, he went on a podcast recently.
Sure.
And he was like, well, then they had to start handing me the ball 30 times. It's like, well, yeah, we kind of needed to do that just because look at what we had going for a skill position.
Yeah, what else were we supposed to do, buddy?
Yeah.
What else were we supposed to do? Speaking of that now, year 2 with Kafka, how did you feel about Kafka's first year, even though he's running through Dayball? How did you feel about what he was doing with what he had to work with? Same with Wink. How did you feel about the coordinators?
Yeah. Kafka, there was a certain point where I was a little frustrated. I know a lot of people were very frustrated at certain points with Kafka. I was a little frustrated only because there was a certain point in the season where, and even Saquon Barkley acknowledged this same sentiment on that podcast he was on. There was a certain point where Saquon went through a rough stretch and the Giants went through a rough stretch offensively, where we were just handing the ball off to Barkley, especially on early downs. And it was just not setting the team up for success. If you get into 3rd and longs and you have a bad offensive line or a suspect areas of an offensive line, like the right side was last year. I mean, teams were just, eating Glowinski and Neal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And especially when you get to 3rd and long, you're not setting Daniel Jones up for success. You're not setting the offense up for success. So there was a certain point last year where it's like, dude, Saquon's just not efficient right now. The running game is not efficient. And the offense was going nowhere towards like that middle stretch of the season. Then Hodgins kind of comes along. We face the Vikings, which is nice because they're really bad. The Colts, and everything kind of goes up from there. So I liked Kafka. What I hope Kafka does this year, in a way, this sounds messed up, but if Kafka is an offensive coordinator for the Giants next year, I think something went really wrong this year, like with the team. I kind of hope that Kafka gets a head coaching job after this year, because then that means the Giants had a good year,
Right.
because the hype is so high right now with Mike Kafka that even if the Giants have like an average-ish, good-ish offensive year, Mike Kafka is going to get a head coaching job. So if he is still offensive coordinator next year, odds are something went really wrong with the offense, and I don't want that. Wink Martindale is awesome. One of the main worry that I think we all had with Wink heading into last year was that he wasn't going to be able to adjust. From blow, this is a guy that just blitzes a ton. He plays man coverage, and he's going to live and die by that. He's going to live and die by man coverage and not give his corners help. So if he doesn't have good corner depth, you're done. Giants didn't really have good corner depth last year. Even playing Darnay Holmes in the slot, who is not a man coverage corner, yet they survived. And they even survived after Xavier McKinney's ATV accident, and they survived with Adoree Jackson. They lost their CB1, who Adoree Jackson's a solid, good CB1.
Yep, absolutely.
And they lost their good safety, and they were fine. They weren't perfect, but they were fine, all while having the worst linebacker depth in the NFL and being the worst run defense in the league. So
yeah. And having one healthy pass rusher who was a rookie being held almost every other play.
Yes.
And like absolutely. You said, still managed. So I think that speaks volumes to how they prepared. I always felt like this team was prepared almost every game, sans maybe one or two. So that's really what made you excited. The news breaks. You're sitting there. You see it. We all see it. Giants trade for Darren Waller. This move happens. What is your initial thought at that moment? What is your thought now that you've been able to sleep on it, digest it? How do you feel about it now? So give me initial to today.
The initial was shock, because my favorite team doesn't usually do things like that, right? Like they don't, where it's not a risk-free move.
Sure.
It's not. Now financially, yeah, there's he is getting paid a little bit of money, and they did have to restructure it, so it's not like, oh, they could just wipe their hands clean if it doesn't work this year. But honestly, the biggest risk is that he doesn't work, and that just sucks. So that part of it is cool. That the biggest risk isn't, oh, we're going to be put behind financially for the next 3-4 years if he doesn't work. But the biggest risk is, man, Darren Waller can be so good. He can be such a top tier quality, top 5 player, receiving player at his position, that that's the biggest fear. Man, it won't work, and that would just suck for the offense. But if it does, and he is even just, let's just say 75% of the player that he was in 2020,
sure,
that changes everything. That changes everything. And I don't think as Giants fans we're used to a player being so good at a position maybe that isn't running back, or let's just say left tackle. Left tackle is not really a position that, oh, you're breaking down and we're watching, especially on TV every Sunday. Andrew Thomas has been good, elite the last 2 years. And then even Saquon Barkley being elite and good, it does lead to wins, but it's not like the passing game does lead to wins. That directly leads explosive plays, points, and wins. That stuff does lead there. And if Darren Waller works, it is going to be so fun, and it is going to take this offense to a place that we haven't been in quite a while. And I am really, really looking forward. Darren Waller's there's a few wild cards this year of oh, what can this guy do? And how can he kind of change the team? Darren Waller, definitely on offense. Darren Waller and Evan Neal are the two biggest wild card of, if they can be good, this can make this Giants offense a top 10 offense. It really can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if it's unfair expectations or maybe thoughts, but I'm envisioning Waller in the Kelsey role. Obviously not a Kelsey, obviously, but in that role and mold on usage, and that's got to be exciting to any offense.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the other one is Evan Neal. Talk to me about last year. Talk to me about what is your expectation and hope And if those aren't met, what's the backup plan?
I've never thought of the backup plan. If
I'll tell you my backup plan right now while you think of your answer. My backup plan is you run 12 personnel, you keep Bellinger in for help, and if he needs to leak out, he leaks out. Otherwise, he kind of just stays in, unfortunately. And it kind of removes him somewhat as a receiver, but at least it'll help out Evan Neal. That's
Yeah.
the only backup plan I can come up with.
All right, so I mentioned how Darren Waller and Evan Neal are like the two biggest wild cards.
I think it's
I'm going to say
Bellinger.
Evan Neal is the biggest wild card because the Giants' offense can still be fine
Sure.
without Darren Waller. Like Darren Waller's like this luxury car. Like, wouldn't it be great to drive the Corvette? But Daniel Bellinger is still like a Dodge Charger, an all-wheel drive 40 grand Dodge Charger, right?
Machine.
And it'll get you to where you need to get.
Yep.
It's reliable. It'll still, so there you go. How do you like that metaphor?
Love
Evan
it.
Neal, though, please be good. Get out of your stance. Move your feet. Whatever the new stance that we're working on, which I love that he was working with. I can't remember exactly the former old lineman that he was working with. It was at Bayonne High School. He was working with them at a Veterans Stadium. It's funny how I remember the stadium, but I don't remember the coach that he was working with. But please be good, man, because it went unnoticed, but also I feel like it didn't go unnoticed at times. He was one of the worst tackles in the league. And the difference between him and Thomas is that Thomas's rookie year kind of showed like that gradual improvement. And that's something that's very much lost on the whole Andrew Thomas versus Evan Neal story in comparison. Sure. Andrew Thomas's growth was gradual. Evan Neal didn't really have that gradual growth. And sure, Evan Neal, you could say, hey, he was struggling with an injury. All these guys, I feel like they're nicked and they're banged up and they're dealing with something. So I really, more than anything, it's not me hating on Evan Neal. Like, I am praying that he is good. Just last year was bad, but I trust that, like Joe Shane, especially last year's draft class, like going off of like character profiles and going off like his first year in, even if these guys aren't going to be the best football players, I think like this first draft class, he's like, I need guys that are going to come in here and grind and work their ass off. And I know Evan Neal is a guy that puts a lot of pressure on himself. You even sensed it last year, like during camp, and he would get sound bites of, hey, he was struggling during camp with the same things that he struggled with during the season, by the way. And he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to be good. And he's a thinker. He's a guy that thinks, but almost you just want to tell him to go out there and just be athletic, be a freak, get out of your stance. Like, that's like half the battle, that he just couldn't get out of his stance at the same time everybody else was getting out of their stances. So if he can do that, stance, whatever, get out of your head, don't put so much pressure on yourself, I feel like we can have at least an average tackle in our hands, and that changes the trajectory of the entire offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the main thing was for me, I watched him, and again, I'm not some analyst, just we're seeing kind of the same thing. We're interpreting how we're interpreting it. It was just the slow feet. It was slow feet every time, just the inability to time his feet, and that's how he got beat. It wasn't because he can't handle a rush, not because he's a weakling who just got bored. Just the feet were not there with his brain. They just didn't click at the same time. So, if you, like you said, half the battle is just get out the stance, and you have enough of an athletic profile to even recover. Because I saw him recover enough when he was able to. There was a good 5-week stretch where Evan Neal was looking like, yes, I'm happy. I like what he's doing, because you're not hearing from him. He was just doing his job, and it wasn't elite, but it wasn't trash. It was good enough. And I was like, I'll take this in year one. And then just kind of went downhill. And it obviously coincides with the MCL. Kayvon had the MCL first. When he came back, it was slow for him. He didn't pick it up for a few weeks.
Last summer was just a summer of MCLs. I would like to not have that again.
Unbelievable that at the entire draft class, I think only McFadden didn't get hurt. Everybody else significantly got hurt.
Bellinger got his eye poked out.
He turned into a Terminator. RoboCop it, everything. I mean, physically everyone just got hurt. So I'm hoping, health is obviously a big, big part of it. But yeah, I have hope for Neal, and I'm with you so far based on the scouting and the drafting. I feel like, and again, I'm trying to be objective, I feel like they know what they're doing a little bit more. They're getting better players who are making significant impacts, or you can even project that, hey, I can see this person, and I want to keep beating the drum with, knocking on O'Shane here, but it's kind of scenario where when you watched him play, you saw those spots, but in the year, the fall, you kind of saw it and you're like, huh, consistently, I don't see it.
Right.
You have guys where I owe Joe Shane such an apology for Cordell Flott, like such an apology. I was so wrong on that guy, like so wrong on that guy. Because when they drafted, I was like, oh, great, another slot corner. He weighs 12 pounds. Why are we picking up guys who weigh feathers? But man, his read and react skills were so impressive. If he doesn't beat out Darnay Holmes, something's wrong. Something's very wrong. And to me, even if Adoree walks away, I'd be okay with him being CB2. I think he can be a CB2. That's how impressed I was with Cordell. I can't say that about previous drafts where I saw a guy in the third or fourth and was like, I think he can project to this. Just it wasn't there. So at least there's some level of hope for me there. Let's get to not the elephant in the room, but the main topic, right? It's happened now. We know what it is. Saquon negotiations didn't work out, this, that, and the third. He said, she said, all that whole 9 yard, which we're never really going to know until a year passed and somebody wants to leak it. So we are really never really going to know what it is outside of, the close reporting we have. How do you feel about it initially? What was your expectation? How do you feel about it today going forward?
I'm a fan of the New York Giants.
Yes,
and
sir.
I will root for the Giants first, right?
Yes,
and franchise tagging Saquon Barkley, while not, it's not even bad business because it's part of the rules that the NFL allows you to do. While it's not the warmest and it's not the most loved thing that they did, it was the right decision. Now, if he does choose to hold out for even if just for a couple of weeks this year, which I don't think he will, I really think that there's like a 95 to 99% chance that he shows up and he plays, especially after, again, I keep referring to that podcast, but like that podcast that he was on, like he basically kind of does confirm that he's not going to sit out. Like there's still another bag for him to earn, which is after this year, and he recognizes that, and good for him for recognizing that. But this was the right decision for the Giants, 100%. So I'll leave it with that, and then what do you think, and then where do you want to go from there?
I mean, from that, I'll go here. Let's say Saquon holds out, and when I say hold out, he decides to be a martyr for some very odd reason, which he doesn't need to be. He wants to be the running back martyr here because he's probably got the brand, he's probably got the name, he's probably the best bet to be the martyr as far as naming and leverage would go, just strictly off the brand, not actual leverage, because that's non-existent. So let's say he decides to be this martyr and he wants to hold out for training camp. He's going to play week 1, but he wants to hold out for training camp, right?
Yeah.
It's time for him to now come around. He hasn't been around all training camp. What does Brian Daboll do here? When the mantra is smart, tough, dependable, and you got to be here, and you got to put in the grind, and you got to put in the reps. When one of your best players says, I'm going to hold out as an example, because it's not like you're not getting paid. We need to move away from this. Saquon's not getting money. He's getting $10 million guaranteed, 10.1. It's not like he's not getting paid, even if it's a franchise tag. I don't feel bad for Saquon because, you know what? No running back has made more guaranteed money in less serviceable years than Saquon. Historically speaking, he's made the most money in 5 years than anybody else in that time frame. Yep. So the bag for him is there. I'm not sad about the money thing in any form for him. And that another 10 million pushes him into like 15th all time of running back payment. So now he holds out. He decides to come back. What does Brian Daboll do when Eric Gray's out here grinding and Matt Breida's out here grinding and Gary Brightwell? Do you just say, hey, man, welcome back. You're the guy, week 1? Or is it like, we got to work you in now because I don't know, but what do you do in that situation?
I will say the main difference is, and this is why Saquon holding out and Saquon acting like he is going to miss games is so weird, because every opportunity that he's had to work out with the team outside of the facility, he was with them in Phoenix. When Daniel Jones is hosting workouts, he's there. When Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, they're playing catch at a New Jersey high school with with some kids and stuff like that. So like all these opportunities that Saquon's had to like be with the team outside of just being in the facility, he kind of has. So that's why, all like the threat of him holding out, it's like, dude, it's not really a threat because you're still like with these dudes. And again, credit to him for being a good teammate. It's just weird that's like even the leverage that you don't have because you've been doing all these extracurricular things that the team isn't even asking you to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
you're
why
not
it's a
showing me
little strange.
disgruntled outside of the facility because you're still with the teammates you're doing everything. I don't go, well, this guy hates everybody.
Strange, but and here's why I think that they will welcome him back with open arms. And I hear you, but this is not like, let's just say if let's think if Darius Slayton wanted to hold out, right, because he was not happy with his contract,
Sure.
Dable would be like, screw you, I guess we'll go somewhere else. But this is Saquon Barkley,
Yeah.
and the alternative that they have at running back, well, Eric Gray, I think Eric Gray could be a fine pro, and I
Sure.
think
But he's
given the
never played a
opportunity,
snap yet, right? Never played a snap
given
yet.
the opportunity, I think he could be fine. But he's still not Saquon Barkley, and I
Sure.
think that's the kind of difference there. And also, him being, this is the second year in the system, and we talked about it a little earlier about how running backs it just seems like they can kind of hit the ground running. As long we know that Saquon, his body's going to be ready. I hope that his mind is ready. That's the one thing from thinking back to 2020. Like definitely his body, sure, coming a year off the ACL was not right, or
Yep.
excuse me, 2021, not 2020, 2021. I also know like his mind wasn't right, and he's talked about that too, where he like got in his own head. And I think Saquon Barkley is a very conscious athlete on what his mindset is.
Yep.
Like I think he get, just like any of us, I think he can get frustrated certain weeks, and that leads to inefficient play. And then I think there are some weeks where he has that kind of like eye of the tiger, that Kobe kind of feel, and then he balls out, and that's great. So that's some. I hope that whenever Saquon comes back, I know his body's going to be ready, but I hope his mindset is still good after all this is said and done. And I think it will be, because there's like millions of dollars on the line for him, because this is still it will still be another contract year for him.
Yeah, it's not only the guaranteed money, it's endorsements. It's if it's not the Giants, who's my future team? I mean, everybody's watching, right? Future owners, future GMs.
Yeah.
Everything is public. That's all going to. This is part of, I guess, your interview process, if you will, if it would be outside. So it's been an interesting saga. Resolution is on the table. Again, I don't think anyone expects him to sit. I'm even okay with the again holdout in training camp if he just wants to rest his body.
Yeah, I'm
Like
cool
whatever,
with it
dude,
too.
that's fine. I have no issue with that as long as you're ready for week one. And we're ready to hit the ground running. Then I'm with you. Talk to me about last year's draft class. Who's the key guy? Who is the person that's going to take that next step? Who does it need to be if it's different than who you think it's going to be?
We'll go outside like the first round picks,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
Can we
yeah.
make that rule?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Because that's the obvious ones. Give me the mid rounders and forward. Who's going to take that step for you?
Let's see. Oh, Azudu, easily. Josh Azudu.
Mauler, absolute mauler in the run game.
Third round pick last year, so there is expectations. Like
Yes.
once you get to like fourth round and on, it's like if you can get a guy that can contribute, or even if you get like a quality starter, that's cool.
Sure.
Third round, high third round pick, Josh Azudu. You're expected to eventually be somewhat of a starter and be all right, right? So it'll be a camp battle between him and Ben Bredesen. I'm rooting for Josh Azudu to win that job just because draft pick, you have years
Sure.
of control. His athletic upside is also just there. Like he's super athletic. He can move his feet well. He is a mauler in the run game, like you mentioned. So it would be cool to see him out in space, move to that secondary level, whether it is with Andrew Thomas to his left, John Michael Schmitz to his right, and then moving together and moving dudes. That'd be a lot of fun. And also, I like Ben Bredesen being a depth piece and being like a super utility on the interior, snapping the ball and playing guard. That's super appealing to me. So I want Azudu to win that job, and being that high third round pick, the expectation is that he should win that. He should win that job.
Yeah, and we haven't got much of an update on his neck injury. I guess we'll find out very, very soon where that standpoint is at. We just haven't heard anything about him as far as
No,
whether he's healthy now. I mean, not a leak, not an update, nada. So I don't
Dunleavy.
know what's
Oh, we had Dunleavy on a couple weeks ago,
sure.
and I don't even think he knew. So this is something we'll have to definitely look out
Yeah,
for in
that
camp.
that that would probably be the only part that I think kind of bothers me about the whole Zudu thing is that nobody knows if he's still healthy. Like, not even a
Well,
word.
speaking
Not
of nobody knowing, another draft pick last year, Dane Belton. It took Sean Morash, who's our guy from WFAN. He's going to be, he has like a new spot with not Tiki and Tierney. Shoot, Evan and Tiki. So that new afternoon drive show on WFAN. Sean Morash is going to be like the third voice. He has a
sure.
Giants podcast, and he was talking with Dane Belton in the spring for that podcast, and then Dane Belton just blurts out, "Yeah, I had surgery on like my shoulder over the offseason, and that was an injury I was struggling with throughout the entirety of last year." And it's like, where was that information? Because we knew that he broke his collarbone in the summer,
Yep.
Dane Belton. And then it was so curious to see Xavier McKinney goes down, and then Dane Belton is virtually benched and he's not on the field, and nobody knows why. Lo and behold, he needed surgery on his shoulder, and he was out,
Yeah,
basically for like the remainder of that
I
year.
had wind of that information.
Oh,
Obviously, not
Zain,
something
you
I'm not
sharing?
I'm not allowed to, man. It'd be one of the few things where I'd be breaking all trust whatsoever by sharing
Yeah,
that information. But I did know he was hurt, and in the nicest way, when I did tweet, I did outwardly say like, "Look, man, he doesn't look right. Get off his back." Because we got the whole, "Oh, look, he's in the doghouse. He sucks." Blah blah. I was like, "My guy, come on, man. He's very clearly hurt." And
yeah,
then when he was healthy enough, there was a rotational issue. It was a pain management issue. There was that whole thing going on between, like you said, the clavicle, because he did re-injure it, and then he missed 3 games very randomly. Even though it's like, yeah, he's fine. Well, no, why did he miss 3 games? So in that
Zane,
case,
when are we hiring you to be on the beat, man? When are we,
uh,
this is
I
what
gotta
we need. This is
I gotta ask my wife.
this is what we
Um,
need.
I gotta ask my wife, man. No, from that standpoint, I look, I'm a huge Dane Belton guy. I think the kid is just a really great kid. Comes from a great family. I like his profile. They played him at free safety a lot and moved McKinney down. Some people think it should be the other way around. Maybe he should have been brought down and then McKinney goes in the free safety role. But I think when Wink comes up, and you brought up Javarius Owens as maybe that third safety, Dane Belton's in that mix for me too. Who's going to be next to McKinney? Dane Belton's in that mix. They brought in Bobby McCain,
Mm.
who's coming off obvious star. So there's a lot more depth there in the safety room than probably the cornerback room per se. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm a Dane Belton guy. Again, both of the fourth rounders are big ones. Bellinger and Belton are both big pieces that I've hope and pride for. But yeah, like you said, the injuries are just very interesting. That what happened to that draft class last year. So going forward, that's the one. Who's the one in this draft class that you are betting your money on? That's going to be the one. I'm guessing it's probably going to go back to JMS for you. I'm not completely sure if that's still, is it the favorite pick also the one you're betting the money on
Man,
for the pro transition, or is it?
quarterback, all three of those positions. Hyatt, because of the player that he is right now, you know, everybody made like, light of the video where he was with the Cowboys wide receiver coach, and he's like, "Well, I can run routes." It's like, I'm glad he can run routes, but how
Yeah,
well can he run routes? Like, that is a big question about Jalen Hyatt. And I know,
well,
like, hey, he have to prove everybody wrong, but still, that is a question from his profile at Tennessee. Can he actually run routes? So he's like a developmental guy that I'm not putting a ton of pressure on, which is fine. I love that. JMS, the interior is such a tough position to transition to in the NFL, especially look at the NFC East interior defensive lineman he will be facing like 6 times a year, for a total of 6 games this year. And then Deontay Banks, cornerback is so difficult to transition to in the
yeah.
NFL. So who is it crazy to say like Eric Gray takes over? Like Matt Breida is cut, and then Eric Gray is RB2, and
I don't think that's crazy at all. I actually think that's going to happen. I
he
actually
takes
am.
over that.
Yeah, I actually think that happens. Um, so Jay's brought this up. Jay, you say this every week, and every week I disagree with you. So now I'm going to disagree with Justin here as well. He was not in the doghouse because he missed 2 tackles, bro. He missed 2 tackles and I don't know how many snaps. That doesn't put you in the doghouse. I promise you, it's because he was hurt. I promise you this. I
Yeah,
have.
initially that is what I thought, and now
Yeah,
when Sean Morash came out with that, and Zane, you knew it, I like felt bad, and it kind of like I like redirected my Dane Belton from like, oh, the coaching staff wasn't playing him to yeah, when he was out there, he was doing some cool stuff. He kind of looked instinctual. Even what impressed me more than the Houston interception, there was a third down play against the Seahawks last year where Jihad Ward deflects the pass. But if Jihad Ward doesn't get his hands on that pass, Dane Belton was going to jump the route and possibly take it for a pick six. So baiting Geno Smith into that throw on like a third down, like that's like a play where it's, we didn't see a ton of Dane Belton, but that's a play that gets me really excited for Dane Belton and his ability to anticipate what's going to happen. And then of course, even the Houston play too. The Houston play, he anticipated, hey, I'm gonna hang back here, make the quarterback think that he has a throw, boom, bounce on the ball, get the interception. So, my mentality, when I heard that Dane Belton was struggling with that injury, my mentality went from, oh man, are we even sure that the coaches even like him, to all right, like let's give him that shot. Let's let him rock and roll this year.
Yeah. So Chris wants to ask this, and I'll direct this more to you. Question for Zain and Justin: what makes a successful content creator? Now, Justin's been doing this long enough. I'm going to completely leave this up to him to answer.
No, I would say doing it for the right reasons. There's a lot of people that may even reach out to me and be like, well, I want to do this solely to get a job. I want to do this, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, but that could be like an end goal. But at the end of the day, like, build a community. And that's still like my mentality. That's why I started it in 2018. I started, my thing in 2018 because I wanted to build a community of people, because I was already part of community. And it's very cool that, Talking Yanks, before they were even John Boy Media, my bosses, John Boy and Jake, they just had Talking Yanks, and I was a Talking Yanks listener. And I felt like I was part of that community. Like I felt like I was talking Yanks with them. I felt like I was, right there with them, rooting for the Yankees, analyzing the Yankees and stuff like that. So I felt like I could build that community myself. Eventually just went, pivoted to, doing just a show like all on the New York Giants. And that's been the mentality of, growing socials and, having a social media centered around the Giants and analyzing the Giants, and then, having a long form show on it. And then, transitioning even to tailgates and events and things like that. The mentality and the impetus, the driving force behind it all is building community, building a community of people that are like-minded Giants fans. And that's really like why I do it, is to, hey, when we win, we're going to celebrate it together. And when we lose, we're gonna be sad. We're gonna be sad and angry together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's exactly the mindset that I kind of take behind it.
Sure, which is fair. So there's all this conversation about hot dogs. All right, this is obviously to you. What's your favorite hot dog, and what, if any, condiments do you like on your hot dog?
Chicago dog has recently changed my life.
First time?
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago. So NASCAR sent us out to the Chicago street race, which has been awesome. I grew up like a NASCAR fan, and they sent us to Daytona this year. They sent us to Chicago. That was like a dream come true this year.
Chicago's my second favorite city in the world, probably. Second or third. New York.
No, that Chicago dog was incredible. And
yeah,
I forget everything that was on it, but I know like relish was on, and pickles were on it.
Yeah, you could put peppers on it. I mean,
peppers. Yeah.
A Chicago dog is basically a fully loaded hot dog, right? You can just throw whatever you want on it. The standard usually, I believe, is like there's definitely a pickle on it. Definitely, I always throw pickles on it. Peppers are on it, and then everything after that is, if you want it, we're gonna put it on it. So it's like a fully loaded hot dog.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. So that's my favorite type of hot dog. And I got to tell you something. I don't like mustard. I think society, I know society has peer pressured me to like mustard and to put mustard on my hot dogs. Because I started the whole, if you don't know what this is and why we're talking about this is very weird. So the Giants last year were preventing fans from filming the practices. They prevented anybody from filming the practices.
I remember seeing a picture of you outside sad by a banner because you couldn't. I recall this.
Correct. So it's funny how they told the beat reporters stop filming practices,
Mm,
and then but so we kept doing it because we're not we're not media. So we did it, and then the Giants eventually emailed me. And, they have my email because I'm a regular season ticket holder. So they emailed me and they're like, nice. They were very nice. Like, it was a very nice interaction. It wasn't like, hey, stop this or else. They were just
sure.
like, hey, can you please stop? Because what was happening is that everybody, since we were the only ones posting clips primarily, we were getting traction because the beat was using our videos, and then therefore
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
nationally, people were using the video since that was like the main source of it. So I was like, I need to do something stupid and outrageous, because if I can't post practice videos and we can't do that, what are we going to post, besides
Sure.
just tweets and recap tweets? So I said, let me just go get a breakfast hot dog and take a video of me eating a hot dog. And I had like a sad
Now
face
what?
on.
Now what is a breakfast hot dog? What is a
It,
breakfast hot dog?
it's
Just
a
a hot
hot
dog for
dog.
breakfast?
It's a hot dog that you eat at like 9 a.m. because that's what I did
Fair,
last year for Giants practices. They were like
fair
a
enough.
very early in the morning. They like started at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. And I would just get 2 hot dogs, just to hold me off until because we would have the end of practice, and then we would do a bunch of stuff, post practice, Bobby and I. So I needed something.
Sure.
So I just took a video of me eating a hot dog one day, and it started a frenzy of opinions. Like, there are times where I will have 50 to 60 replies on a tweet of me, like a picture with the hot dog or eating a hot dog. And it is the most outrageous social media trend that I have ever like come across, like in my own publishing life. That the amount of people of me just doing something so simple and also gross, by the way. Who wants to see that? Yet so many people have so many opinions on how to properly dress and eat a hot dog. So therefore it has become my thing since then.
Interesting. Would you ever, or have you ever been in a hot dog eating contest?
No, and can I tell you a goal of mine?
Sure.
I want to be in it next year, and I want to finish in last. I am a very slow eater. I will
The
not.
the actual Nathans, you mean? Like the
Yeah,
actual competition?
yeah, I want to be in it.
I don't even know how you get
And we
into
have
that
a
thing. There's got to
we
be a
hopefully
prerequisite. There's got to be a prerequisite to
no
get.
no. I want to. I my prerequisite is that it's my thing. That's the prerequisite. So I want to be in it, and I will finish in last.
What about a Talking Giants hot dog eating contest?
I was thinking about a tailgate this year. That's something that
Why
we may
not?
do.
That
But
sounds like a
also,
great
it's like
idea.
dangerous. Like, what if somebody starts choking, and it's like, am I responsible for that?
No, not at all. Everyone, make people sign waivers if you want to, but
Oh my god, I would also feel terrible. It's like, oh, I don't get to go into, a Giants winning against the Jets.
I feel like if you died eating a hot dog, some part of it is natural selection. If if it wasn't allergic reaction based, right? Some part of it's got to be natural selection here. Like, here lies so and so died eating a hot dog. I don't know, man. That seems like I don't know. That's a tough one. I
But
feel
that is
bad,
on the
but
table. That's on the table this year for tailgates for
I feel
sure.
like it feels like. Let me know, man. Let me know. I'd like to join into a hot dog
Yeah.
eating contest. See how that works out. That'd be kind of fun. You never know, man. See, look, Chris is down for one.
Love
this
it.
is a, this is a thing, and then you got to be in it, and you just gotta go for the gusto at that point.
I'm a very slow eater. I like to enjoy the food. I
That's
savor it.
yeah. I mean, look, I was in one hot dog eating contest in college, and I came in second, which was nice, but that was difficult. I don't think I can even do it
How
now.
many did you eat in what span of
It
time?
was whoever ate 10 first.
Oh my god, how long did it take you?
I don't remember. It moved pretty. That other guy was going down, man. It's like he had practiced or he knew what he was doing. I
Did you
didn't.
dip it in water and
I
then
didn't have
like
a formula, man. I was like going to town. I was just boom, bread and bun, one after the other. I didn't have a formula. I was just like boom. I got to like 9, and the guy was done. I was like, damn, I was close. But yeah, he
I
had
get
like
agita?
he had a formula.
Wow.
Yes, you do things in college that involve free food. You ever been to college? That for me lasted me all day for food, maybe even the next day because not a lot of hot dogs. But I did what I had to do to get fed that day. Um, Hey,
Did you
listen,
dip it in water?
no, I drank a lot of
Okay.
water afterwards because I was dying a little bit from all the hot dogs.
Oh,
It's
well,
all salt, bro.
that's why they do it, because it's probably so dry that that's
It's
probably
yeah,
why they do it.
it's bread and salt. It's gonna kill
Yeah.
you a little bit
Yeah.
over time, but hey, what a way to go! I love hot dogs. Favorite tailgate food,
Favorite tailgate food.
or not even tailgate? Just what do you like to eat while watching the game? If you're hungry, what's
Can
the
I
first
give
thing?
you, well, I take a lot of pride in something. Can I tell you a
Sure,
fun fact about me? I have never, ever. I've been going to Giants games since 2005.
sure.
I have been going full time to Giants games since 2009. I regular season tickets since then.
Sure.
I have never bought food at Giants Stadium or MetLife Stadium. I have
Ever?
never bought food, ever. When I'm there, I'm in. I'm locked in.
So
Never.
you just don't eat during the game, or are you already
I
stuffed?
don't eat during the game, but
Okay, sure.
before the game, this is okay. So this is how this has started to be a tradition the last 2 years. I start off every morning with an Arizona Mucho Mango iced tea, a cigar at around 8:30 to 8:45 in the morning. And then after the Arizona Mucho Mango is done, I therefore move to Mountain Dew. And that is my breakfast. And then I will eat my kind of sub sandwich ish, whatever I have.
Hmm.
Or if we get or if we get our tailgate catered, which is nice, I will have that. But I usually will have my sub sandwich at around 11:30ish. But my morning breakfast on game days is a cigar, Arizona Mucho Mango iced tea, and then a Mountain Dew. Healthy,
Wow,
right?
that is amazing. And I don't even know how you manage that at 8 something in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. God bless you, man. You got the iron lungs over there for doing that. I don't think I could. I don't know if I the Mountain Dew maybe around 11ish. I don't know. The iced tea, listen, Arizona iced tea. You grew up on that when we were kids. You go to the
Yeah.
corner store, even on your walk, you get that. So that I can do with. How you mix a cigar in there at like 9:15? I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah,
You're better
it's
than I.
screwed up. But you want to know what? I need to take I need to take as many bullets for the team as possible
How did that start?
before.
How did
How
that
did that
start? Where did
start?
the cigar
I'm
come
such a
from?
weird.
How did
I'm
it?
a
What, did you just one day go like, I want to try a cigar, and here we are? How did we get there?
well. It originally, before I started smoking cigars, it would originally just be Arizona and then move to Mountain Dew. And now
Mhm.
as the last couple years have gone on, I just added the cigar to the morning routine.
Interesting.
I need to take as many bullets for the team before they take the bullets for me during the game.
Gotcha. Almost like a masochist type
That's
scenario
my
here.
sacrifice. But I don't hate it. I enjoy it.
There you
But
go. That's
still,
fair.
my body hates it probably.
There you go. Okay, fair enough. Mark wants to know: do you have a favorite cigar type? Since you're a bit of a connoisseur, if you will.
Yeah. Arturo Fuentes
Oh, okay.
is my go to for sure.
Well, my guy Steve here just I guess really set you back a little bit. He's got cigars at 7 in the morning. Maybe
I
I'm the
love
one missing something. Maybe there's
no.
cigar etiquette I'm unaware of on how they work. So I'm not a cigar smoker. I do not know if they have a time frame. Maybe they don't. Party times all the time.
You know how cool it would be? Oh, but no, now we're getting into the area of another content creator that also sometimes wears a belt. So maybe we can't. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
He sometimes has a belt and then he smokes a cigar and he's like in his basement. He wears sunglasses. I'm talking about Cop Hizzle.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I've seen him on the
We
internet, but I'm
don't
not
we
aware
don't we
aware
don't
of
want to.
him.
No, I was about to say, how cool you would look with the belt and the cigar, but then I'm like, don't do that.
My belt's better. I don't even know this guy, but I'll tell you my belt's better, and I'll just leave it at that.
I love it.
My belt's better. It's fine. Um, Next season, what's your expectation? Where are we? Whether it's record wise, whether it's individual accomplishments, whether it's incremental growth, what are you looking for? Where are we next season? And because of last season, there's got to be some level of expectation now set that you can't go below anyway. Where are those kind of things for you?
I want the playoffs again.
Mhm.
I want to have a good enough season where we make the playoffs and feel like we got a shot again. We played that Vikings game was a tremendously favorable matchup, even though they didn't win 13 games. I mean, that again, another game where we lost, but it kind of set us up for future success. That Christmas Eve game.
Sure.
I want the offense to produce explosive plays at an average rate, which I don't think is asking too much, but I want them to be average in that category. And I want the scoring offense to be close to top 10. And if I think in those two categories, if the scoring offense is close to top 10, if we're producing explosive pass plays in, at an average rate, I do think this team will make the playoffs again. And then you never know, as we know from, we started off the show talking about the 2007, 2011 team.
Sure.
You never know. You never know what can happen when you get yourself into the dance.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for my mental health, I would also like playoffs again. I don't want this whole one-off scenario like 2016, right? You had the one-off and then, right? I need consistency. I want to get back to, at least with Eli and company, you were in the mix. You had a chance. Stuff was happening, not this whole, one and done and womp womp, we got to get better. I want consistency. I'm with you. I would like that. Who's going to be the star on defense? Who's the one player? Who's the one player who's going to be the star on offense? And they could be the obvious one. It could be the not obvious one, but who's going to be the star on both sides of the ball?
I mean, we have the expectations for Kayvon Thibodeau to be the star on defense, right? But I reached a point today where I'm like, if Azeez Ojulari plays a somewhat full slate of games this year, he's going to have more sacks than Kayvon Thibodeau. And that's not a shot at Kayvon.
No.
Kayvon is still super young. But what we saw from Azeez last year was unreal. And he was not healthy for even the games that he was pseudo-healthy for anyway.
He wasn't even playing full games. He was playing sparing snaps.
There were 3 games that he got over 30 pass rush, or excuse me, there were 3 games that he got over 25 pass rush snaps. And I have the stats right here. So let me actually get it right as I read it. 3 games over 25 pass rush snaps last year for Azeez Ojulari. In those games, he had 4 QB hits via PFF out of 5. And more importantly, in those 3 games where he had over 25 pass rush snaps, he had 4 of his 6 sacks. I'm a big believer that pass rushers, they need to get their feet wet a little bit. They need to get the flow of the game. They need to get a flow of a season kind of under their belt to, kind of figure out what's working, what's not working with certain opponents and, prepare for opponents week in and week out. So I think Azeez is going to have more sacks than Kayvon, and that's not a shot against Kayvon. I just think he's going to have more sacks. I think Kayvon could be a better player, but Azeez could have more sacks.
Sure.
So I think Azeez could be like, besides Dex, like a little bit of a breakout star this year. So that's defense. And then offensively, I would love for it to be Darren Waller. Like if we're ending the year saying Darren Waller is a offensive star for the Giants, I think the Giants had a pretty good year. So,
okay, fair enough. Favorite Giants memory, and again, it's probably so many. You can rattle off a few if you'd like. Just kind of curious when Justin sits down and he's in his memory bank with the eyes closed and he's just smiling about the Giants. What is he picturing?
An Eli Manning 4th quarter comeback in 2011. Because that was just awesome.
Greatest pure skill throw in Super Bowl history is Manning to Manningham.
Yes.
Easily. It's not even debatable. It's the greatest pure skill throw. There was no luck involved in that whatsoever. Excellent catch by Manningham. Throw was elite.
Well, he couldn't drop it.
Yeah, could not.
Mario Manningham was not allowed to drop that pass.
No. He wouldn't have been. He would have got cut right there on that sideline if he missed it.
Oh, there was no way he was going to drop it. He just actually wasn't. Like that was not even a possibility.
It wasn't
because of how good the throw was.
Sure.
So I was honored. 2007, I didn't have the regular season tickets yet, even though I saw a couple games that year here and there. But 2011, I was a little bit older. 2011 too. I was a teenager. So I really have good memories of, those games and the home playoff game too.
Sure.
That wasn't even a 4th quarter comeback game, but just, shutting them out, on the defensive side of the ball. The Falcons had the safety. Hakeem Nicks taking it over the middle of the field. Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw having like a resurgent game late in the game, kind of taking control of that. And even week 17 against the Cowboys, which was just a straight up party for for that second half, just dancing in the stands and, having no care in the world besides, hey, we just beat the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football and we're going to the playoffs. And then, hey, we're going to be back here at MetLife Stadium 1 week later. It's still crazy how MetLife's been open for all these years and they've only hosted one playoff game.
Yeah.
So it's going to change soon. Eagles, please get worse and stop drafting so well. No, but I would say that's like that year, and being part of it and being a regular season ticket holder for that year was super special.
Who's your favorite Giants player all time? Who's the guy?
All time. Okay.
Yep.
OC Umenyiora.
Nice.
I think OC and his skill set, there's not a lot of play. We always have this argument of, oh, can this player, fast forward to this time period and can they play? I think OC and his skill set and what he was best at, I think it fits almost better now than when he did when he actually played. Like, imagine him as like a stand-up edge rusher, you know?
Do you think, so good on there, do you think Kayvon's better with hand in the dirt or standing up?
I've never cared to like fully look at like the splits or really pay attention to that.
Sure.
What was the sack against Washington that it was the strip sack?
Oh, that was in the dirt.
That was in all right.
Yeah,
Well, that may have to be something that I look into kind of before the season.
I've always got mixed reactions on people. I've always heard people say, "Well, I prefer him standing up." I personally prefer hand in the dirt. I just like his get off hand in the dirt versus standing up. That's really the difference.
Yeah. No. It's honestly it's a small thing, but it's a great question. And I remember Marcus Golden talking a few years back when he came back to James Bettcher's system. He was talking about how after James Bettcher left Arizona the year after he tore his ACL, how the coach made him put his hand in the dirt and he hated it. And then lo and behold, he comes back to the Giants. He's a stand-up pass rusher, and he's the first guy that gets 10 sacks for the Giants. And I don't know how long in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it certainly does matter for sure.
Yeah, small to the naked eye, but I think to the player, it's a big differentiation on how they attack, how they feel comfortable, how they get off, how they read even the ball snap, if you will. What's next for Justin? What's on the horizon for you? What can we look forward to?
Camp is next week. I mean, this is the best time of the year. A lot of people like Bobby thinks the draft is the best time of the year. That's really when your football team is going to get like better. Like the NFL is a very simple league. Your team is built during the draft. But for me, like I love watching football and analyzing football when football's on, not when football's off. Sure. So when you have training camp and the fans are there to witness training camp and you're 0-0 and 32 teams are 0-0 and you're going to, there's a small part of you that's going to think that your team is going to go on and win the Super Bowl that year. And nobody can tell you you're wrong because we haven't played a game yet. And wow, look at this deep play. Look at this explosive play. Look at how well Jones looks this practice. Sure. So I love camp. I love this time of the year. It's optimism season. Everybody's going to have a great year. And I like this time of the year also because I feel like, what we do at Talking Giants, we cover camp pretty well, with the PPPs, with the episodes that we have analyzing training camp itself, with the interviews that we do with a lot of the beat report members. And, we do live streams on YouTube after every single practice. So we cover all the bases and it's good work. It's a lot of work, but it's the work that I genuinely enjoy the most, like this time of the year for sure.
Sure. What do you say to the Jones detractors? He's not the guy, shouldn't have signed him, can't win with him. Where are you in that world?
It was necessary to sign Daniel Jones after what went down last year. And if they were to franchise tag him, then we're talking about probably not acquiring Darren Waller. We're talking about not signing Bobby Okereke. And maybe you do some of these lower levels, these lower end signings like Ashawn Robinson and Nacho Nunez-Roches and things like that. But, if you franchise tag Daniel Jones, everything kind of changes. Or if you let him walk, I mean, what's the answer? I mean, this is a completely different energy that we're approaching this year if Daniel Jones isn't even on this team. So I think it was a necessity to bring him back. And Yeah, he got his. I mean, Daniel Jones got his, and it's important for this Giants team to, almost the windows are now reversed, where there is a window of, I would say maybe, these next couple of years for, even next year, the cap hit is $40 million, but you have a lot of draft picks that are on this roster right now where their cap hits are going to be low for the next 3 to 4 years. It's important for these guys to develop. And as the cap hits of Andrew Thomas is eventually going to skyrocket, the cap hits of Dexter Lawrence is eventually going to go up. The cap hits of Daniel Jones is going to go up throughout the next few years. It's important for these guys to develop, and it's important for this roster to get shaped up a lot better than it is right now, because you want to make the contract worth it. And if the roster isn't where it needs to be, then Daniel Jones can't be where he needs to be, and then the contract will inevitably, it will look bad if the team isn't where it needs to be. So, yeah, I do think it was a necessity though to bring it back, but he got his though for sure.
Yeah. It's the first game of the 2024 season, not this season, next season. First game, week 1. Where is Saquon Barkley? Where is Xavier McKinney? I'll give you one on each side. Both are going to be, again, pending. Again, where are they both?
Saquon Barkley is not here. And Xavier McKinney is here.
Okay, do you think he gets re-signed?
Okay. Either re-signed or they tag him.
Huh.
I think they could tag him, and I think that would be something that would make sense. Because McKinney's very interesting, because if Patrick Graham were still the defense coordinator and he was still putting up those numbers that he put up under Patrick Graham, he would be one of the highest paid safeties in the league.
Yes.
But he's inevitably not going to put up the same numbers in Wink Martindale's scheme, because Wink Martindale is not going to ask him to do the same things that Patrick Graham asked him to do.
Correct.
So he's not going to get as much money, but he's still going to think of himself as a top 10, top 5
absolutely.
safety.
But he's not playing a true cover free safety as much as he was for Graham.
Right.
He's had a very uneven career, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or he's had one freak accident injury. I get that. But even his rookie year, he missed like 10 games from a ankle or a leg. So he's, missed a significant amount of games too. So I'm curious what it's going to look like for him after this year, if it's here or not. Again, high second round pick, right? Guy you want to develop, keep, bring your own. So just curious on that. And then a couple more questions. I'll let you go because we've been hanging for a while and you have a life. What's your favorite part about the Giants social media world, the Twitter world, whatever you call it? What's the favorite part about Giants, whether it's content creators, fans, it's the community in general? What's the favorite part about that?
I love learning more about like other people's perspectives on like how they watch the game, or even how they, kind of analyze it on their own. So, I mean, Doug Analytics is in the chat. I am really glad that Doug over the last year or so has started posting like, certain charts, and, he works with R and like all the, the player tracking data that's available. And that's stuff that I went to school for criminal justice, and I somehow I didn't go to school for any of this. I somehow started a sports podcast when I was in college, and my thing that I kind of got into was, the analytics side of things, because I saw that not a lot of people were tapping into that. So I figured I kind of liked it, and I tried to tap into it, and then lo and behold, it's kind of, it's kind of led me on a good path. But Doug and other people like Doug that work with, those kind of data sets, like Doug has a job, and like that's what he does for his job. So I love that Doug posts stuff. NYG fan in Charlotte. I don't know if you have come across that page. We call him Research Rick. He does a phenomenal job of like, he'll like rewatch games, and he'll like hand tally, and he'll just track himself, like defensive formations and personnel grouping frequencies, like all these different things that nobody else is tracking. Yet I follow everybody else, and I get to see this, and I get to see how they break down the game and what they think, and then it ultimately influences what I think, and they provide that feedback and that data, and that's awesome. So even if I post stuff that I find from few different sites, and then people will reply to me, but what about this? What about that? And then people will ask questions, and then guess what? If people ask a question, I want to try and answer it. So then I will go and I will research further what I need to research to answer the question. So then it challenges me to be better too. So I love that aspect of it, that we get to watch football together, break it down. And even if, hey, even if even if we're not like football people, right? Where football people know so much and there's so many nuances to it. Break it down in a way that we enjoy it, and analyze it in a way that we enjoy it too. So
And we have Doug Analytics origin story here very quickly. Some people don't know I started Doug because of Justin's
oh,
explosive play reports. So I got a little origin story going on our own right there. So now we know. Lastly, before you go, what's the worst part about Giant social media, Giant Twitter? What's the one that makes you go, why God?
it's happened. This is kind of recency bias with the whole Saquon thing, but
Sure.
just I'm right, you're wrong.
Hmm.
You know, and
No
I
in
guess
between, no context, no conversations,
we
just one way or the other.
and I guess partially we all kind of have, especially if you have a show, if a Giants show, like you're going, like I'm going to say I think this is right and I think this is wrong. I
Sure.
think I literally just did it on the Saquon show where I said I think it's wrong to think that the Daniel Jones contract had anything to do with Saquon Barkley. Like
That's
a lot of
correct.
people were saying that, oh, we had to pay this mid quarterback and we couldn't sign the best, the best player on the team. And I don't think that's thinking in reality, but at least like just you're either right or you're wrong. And you can I can strongly think something, but I won't just utterly just dismiss you and say that you're dumb or something like that. So I guess sometimes like social media can be so even when people aren't intending it to be, it can be so divisive and
Sure.
like, oh, I'm just totally dismissing with what you have to say, or I totally disagree with you, or anything like that. I hate the anonymity of the internet, and this is just in general. This isn't just with
Oh
Giants
yeah, you
Twitter.
mean like Giants fan 1 2 3 7 9 6 4 4 4 with a picture of a cat?
Yeah, and then they say something totally like ruthless and mean
And
and just
offensive.
not
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, of course.
offensive to you. Meanwhile, I'm out here trying to show my face and interact with people, and
Sure.
there's an inevitable risk that you kind of take when you show your when you show your face and you put your name behind something. So that I hate like the internet, and this is just like an internet thing, but ultimately Giants Twitter falls under the internet of the anonymity of the internet, and so I
Sure, and that's
sometimes don't like
become I
that.
would say that's become like a societal thing. I think you could put any topic and you'd probably end up with the same answer as far as there's a lot less discourse on topics. Just
Yeah.
straight up, this is the way I think, and I'm right or wrong. Generally not wrong if I'm the one saying it, of course, but it's that scenario. So yeah, that obviously falls under football too. You're not allowed to change your mind. You can't gather more information. You can't go back and think about it. Whatever you
Oh yeah,
said, that is
changing your mind too is
it's just
something
out the
that
window.
y-
That one's been out the window for on at least social media. That's been out the window for so
ugh,
long, just because God forbid I actually go think about it and not just go off of my initial reaction.
yeah. Or if I was wrong, and
Yeah,
I'm
which I'm okay to say, hey, listen, you know what? I thought
right.
about it. I was wrong. But you can't say that because for whatever reason, that's not real anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but great conversation. Appreciate you. Like I said, I know you have a life and stuff to do.
This
So
was awesome.
I'm gonna let you. This was great. This was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this hot dog eating contest because it's gonna happen. I would like to enter. I don't know what the prize is, but I probably want it. Um, and aside from that, I definitely want to get you back in again, whether it's midseason, whatever. Just kind of get your thoughts and the state on not only football, but what's happening in Justin's life. Like, what are you up to outside of that? So when Justin's not talking Giants, even though I know you're living, breathing, eating it, when you have a spare moment, what do you do in your spare moment? What do we not know about what Justin likes to do?
Man, a lot of people know that I'm a bowler. So, but
I
I
saw I
love it.
saw that recently. So is that like a childhood thing or is it a recent thing I've picked up
I
doing?
started in high school.
Okay.
So I played football in high school. I went to St. Peter's Prep. It was super competitive, and
Shout
then
out to
like
Jersey City. St. Peter's Prep is super competitive. Around the time you went to school was, I'm trying to think, was Will Hill still there?
Will Hill's a few years older than me,
So
but
Will Hill was before you. So I
I was
knew.
going Minka
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick
Gotcha. Yeah.
When Minka
Will,
and Brandon Wimbush.
man, Will Hill had so much potential. If
Yeah.
only he could keep it together. So I know some people that know Will Hill. If he could just keep it together, it would have
If
been
only
great,
he paid his child support and didn't smoke so
man.
much weed. It was those
Yes.
two things that kind of
Yes, yes, yes.
ruined
He
him.
was he was he was sleeping at the coach's house when he was at prep. I mean,
Yeah,
they were trying to keep
he
him in check because the talent was there. He just wasn't there.
and then
Um,
he had to go to Florida, which I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah, that didn't help him at all. That didn't help at
that's a
all.
great school to go to if you're on not a great path. I'm
Yeah.
being sarcastic. But no, so I started in high school, bowling, and I love competing. Like there's just something about, I love competing. Like I do it, in my job, I compete with myself. There's certain benchmarks and there's certain, things that I compete with. And, I want to be the best. Like I want to be the best in what I do.
Sure.
But I think, like I'm in a bowling league, and that's like a good way to compete on that isn't like my life. And at the end of the day, it doesn't have like major consequences on if I bowl well or if I don't bowl well.
Sure.
So that's like, so that's what since I don't do like sports anymore or anything like that, like that's like the main thing that I do. So I love to bowl. I love to compete. And once a week, every Tuesday or Wednesday night, it depends on the time of the year, I'm locked in and I'm competing. So
Nice. So I want to thank everybody who. One more question. I'll let you go. Somebody just wants to know. We brought up bowling. What's your average?
I'm having a really good summer so far. I'm at 207 right now at in my league at Majestic Lanes. So it's been a good summer for me. So I had a bad night last night, so it's unfortunate when you have your average so high, is that if you don't hit your average, you don't get those pins for like your handicap. But no, this summer's been treating me pretty well. I'm on a good flow right now.
One day I'll learn to spin the ball. Until then,
Let's do it.
just one day. I'll take
Hudson Lanes.
Hudson Lanes. I'm down to go to Hudson Lanes. I've been there
Hudson
forever.
Lanes.
That'd be fun. So again, I wanna thank everybody who hung out with us. Great conversation, great chat. Most importantly, I want to thank Justin for taking the time out. I'm always humbled and grateful when people within the community just want to come chat it up. It's always nice to again get to know somebody, get to know how they got to where they are, and see how much you have more commonality than anything else. So definitely appreciate Justin for being here. Look forward to having him back on at some point, schedule permitting and time, of course. And of course, watch out for the Talking Giants hot dog eating contest. It's on the horizon. I'm already announcing it on behalf of. At some point, it'll just magically happen, and that'll be pretty cool. Because somebody's got to win, and it's going to be a competition. Justin likes to compete. I want to see this now because he's a competitive guy, so it'll be really fun. But I want to thank everybody for being on. Most importantly, again, thank you again, Justin. And why don't you just quickly tell people again a little bit about where they can catch you? Again, everybody already knows, but just give them the old iteration of here's where you can find me.
Yeah, Talking Giants, YouTube, all podcast apps. You see the Twitter handle there. I'm on Instagram too, and I post some. If you want like personality stuff on Instagram, I post a good amount of personality led stuff on Instagram, and I'm trying to get into that kind of side of things too.
Cool.
And even like JM football. JM football is something that we're trying to put together right now. It's not fully functioning and up and running right now, but if you can click subscribe on YouTube to JM Football and hang through with us while we get that sorted out, that'd be great. So our plan is to dominate Giants coverage and then eventually even move to all football coverage as well. So Zain, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
No, man, thank you. All right, everyone, have a great night.